Okay. All right. Well, let's call to order the June 10th meeting of the Chaska Park and Recs Board. And with that, agenda item 1, call to order done. And agenda item 2, Mary, roll call, please.
Dave Rowe, Chair.
Here.
David Downs.
Here.
Ernesto Ruiz-Gutierrez.
Here.
Joshua Ice.
Here.
Lauren Dvorak.
Here.
Patricia Whitrock. Here. Sean Olson. Jason Branch.
Here.
Michael Flaherty-Wilcox. Vincent Kim.
Here.
Matt Udermann.
Here.
Elizabeth Carr. Here.
All right. With that, we have adopt agenda, item number 3, and we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt.
Okay, Commissioner Downs, second.
Second.
From Commissioner Whitrock. And any changes, additions, corrections to tonight's agenda?
Are we going to discuss the PAR 30 tonight? After the work session and the meeting coming up in a couple weeks?
Yep, so I have it on my list to just kind of reference the email I sent today in part of my department updates, and then at that point, we can have some discussion.
Perfect.
Okay, so with that, all in favor of adopting tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Visitor presentation. Do we have any visitors? I do not believe that is a visitor. I think that is a guest. And so with that, we'll go ahead and close out the visitor presentation here at about 7:03 and move on to the approving of the previous meeting minutes. And so, has everyone had a chance to review those meeting minutes? And do we have a motion to approve those?
I move that we approve the April minutes.
Okay, second.
Second.
And any further discussion on those meeting minutes? All right, hearing none. Vote to approve those meeting minutes. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so moving on from there, new business. Okay, and this is where Director Grange, please.
All right. Board and Commission, thank you. So tonight I have the pleasure of introducing to you the newest member of our Parks and Recreation full staff team, and that is Zach Johnson. He is a recreation program supervisor for us, overseeing all of our athletics programming, and then will be also overseeing field reservations. So he essentially is backfilling Aaron Link's previous role, who was recently promoted to the recreation program manager. So with that, I'm going to have him just step up here and introduce himself, talk a little bit about his past experience, and a little bit about why he's excited to be here in Chaska.
Check 1, check 2. All right, we're good. So as Marshall introduced me, I am Zach Johnson. I'm from the Brainerd Lakes area, small town of Motley, Minnesota. So if you've been on Highway 10, you may have blinked and never seen it. So we have one stoplight there. Background, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've worked for the Brainerd Lakes YMCA as the program director, doing a lot of what I'm doing now. So doing their athletics there for the adult leagues, youth leagues, things like that. Volleyball, basketball, football, homeschool classes. I ran our summer day camp program, our after school program. So I did a little bit of everything. Before that, I had some desk jobs that didn't particularly care for, working in insurance and things like that. Realized I was not a over-the-phone type of a person, so like that interaction being face-to-face with the person. So was able to move into the role at the YMCA, and then was gracious enough to find this job and come down and interview a couple times and meet the team, and really enjoyed the atmosphere that I came in and saw the office, and just the good working relationships everybody had. One question they did ask is why I wanted to be with the Parks and Rec team was, it was at the Brainerd Family YMCA, it was a family, and that was one thing that everyone that I met with the Park and Rec team said, that they're a family. So everybody's welcomed me. It's been a great transition, and I have friends that live down here in the Chaska Carver area, so they've told me what a great place this is. I have people from the Brainerd Lakes area that grew up here and have nothing but good things to say. My family is kind of scattered all over the United States. I have brothers and sisters in Boise, Montana. I have, Helena, Montana, and a brother that lives in Minneapolis, sister, niece, and brother-in-law that live in Rochester. So I moved a little bit closer to be next to them. So any questions?
When did you start?
I started May 6th, so actually my brother's birthday. So wished him a happy birthday. He wished me a good luck on the new position.
So is this a posted opening that you saw online, or how did you find out about the job?
Yeah, so I found it on, I believe it was the government website, and looked at what it entailed and thought I would be a good fit for it. And then, like I said, it was things that I've done in the past in my previous positions, and applied for it and got a call from Sarah and went from there.
Have you moved down here yet, Zach?
I did. So for the first month, I was living with my brother in Minneapolis, so about a 30-minute drive, which isn't ideal, but for me, it was a 30-minute drive to the YMCA, so it was normal for me. But then I was able to find a spot in Shakopee, so much, much closer, so about a 10-minute drive rather than a 30-minute drive. So I actually just moved in last Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
welcome. Terrific to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Next agenda item here is going to be the Michael Flaherty-Wilcox resignation. Marshall, you'll set the table for that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Michael was not able to attend today. He emailed me earlier this morning expressing his sorrows, but he had to stay home and have some dad duties tonight. But he had reached out a few weeks earlier letting me know that he and his husband are actually moving to Waconia. And so that being said, he has to step down from the park board. But his hope was to still have one more meeting with us, but unfortunately that came about. But he did say he is going to try to find another time and stop by when we have a meeting, just because he really did want to have that opportunity to thank you all and say goodbye. So we'll look forward to that. But with him ultimately stepping down, that creates a vacancy on our park board. And so with that, it essentially would defer to our alternate number one, which is currently Matt Udermann. And so with that, we'll just need to make a formal recommendation to the city council to make that happen. So I'll let you go ahead and make that
Right,
motion.
and so with that, what we would be looking to do is to have a motion to recommend that city council accept Michael Flaherty-Wilcox's resignation from the Park and Recreation Board, and thereby appointing alternate number one, Commissioner Matt Udermann, to fill his seat on the board, provided, Matt, you want to do that.
I was going to say, do we have to ask him? Do you want?
We're good.
I was gonna
We're
give you a
good.
chance.
We're good.
So-
Mr. Udermann, are you ready for this responsibility?
Yes, sir.
So, do we have a motion? Or do we have a second?
Oh, so you- did you-
I'll move that we do it, and then we
I'll
need a
second.
second. Okay, and then all in favor of making that recommendation to the city council, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Good luck with the city
Aboard.
council, I like your chances.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. So, moving on, we have agenda item 6D under new business, and that is the introduction of Park and Recreation new mission and vision statement and values.
All right. So tonight, I'm really excited to share with you some of the work we've been doing within our department. Over the last year, have been really thinking about kind of how we're going to sort of position ourselves, brand ourselves, and how do we fit in with the overall city mission and vision. And so it took me a little while, this being new to the organization, to sit back and observe and get a feel for Chaska, but then also really waiting for that opportunity for the management team to be created within our department, which ended up occurring back in like January, February. So once that management team became finalized, it was at that point where I wanted to start working on our mission, vision, and actually it's going to be a focus statement. And so I came to them at one of our meetings with the framework of a mission, vision, and focus, and then it, through their feedback, we probably spent about 5 or 6 meetings to come to where we're at today. It was really exciting. Last week, we went off-site, the entire Parks and Recreation Department. Went over to Charleston Meadows over in Victoria and spent a really nice day together, and that's where I introduced this to the entire department. We did a lot of small group breakout sessions where everybody got really engaged in what this is going to mean for us, how we're going to communicate it, things like that. So I just really wanted to take the opportunity to share it with you all, knowing that obviously you're advocates of Parks and Recreation, and so you can kind of understand kind of where we're positioning our department today and going into the future. So first off, thinking about a mission, you know, the mission statement's really all about defining what it is we do every day. And it's really defining kind of the what, how, and the why. And one of my goals when we're looking at the mission and vision was to try to create them as short and meaningful as possible so that they're easy to remember and especially just for our staff to be able to remember and so it can resonate with them. So keeping that in mind as we look at these. So starting off with our mission, it's to serve the community. We provide programs, services, and events along with recreational facilities and natural resources to help our community enjoy a healthy lifestyle. So when you look at that statement, the what is really the fact that as staff, we're here to serve the community, period. And so that's really meant to be kind of a real defining statement at the beginning of our mission statement, because I want to make sure that us as City of Chaska employees, that first and foremost, we're thinking ourselves as servants of the community. And so at the retreat, we talked about the different principles behind servant leadership and what that means and some things that we can strive towards doing in the future. You know, and then the how is really all of the different programs and services we provide as a department. So if you look at that, it's you know, us in Parks and Recreation, the things that excite us are just the variety of things that we do day in, day out. And the why is making sure that our community is enjoying a healthy lifestyle. So ultimately in Parks and Recreation, we're in the health and wellness industry and creating that added value for the community from a lifestyle perspective. So that's our mission. And then the vision statement's really meant to be thinking about someday, you know, where are we aspiring to be? You know, setting a lofty goal or an aspiration that maybe we can attain, or maybe it's something we're not necessarily realizing in our day-to-day work. So our vision is to create lifelong memories and a healthier community for all to enjoy. And so one thing I talk about with our staff is just the impact we have as Parks and Recreation staff and ultimately the memories we're creating with the variety of things that we do. You know, oftentimes you ask somebody to think back at their childhood and some of their fondest memories, and it's usually playing at the playground or maybe some of the sports activities that they played in. You know, but you carry that even further and just think about all the things that we do, from hosting weddings at the event center. I mean, that's a big day, and we play a big part in setting the stage to make that, you know, hopefully a lifelong memory for that couple and their family. Or children's birthday parties. You know, we host hundreds of birthday parties at the community center. You know, as people age and they're thinking back on their quality of life, you know, and thinking about the time that they spent here in Chaska, you know, we're hoping that as Parks and Recreation staff, we're playing a part of that. And so that's something that we can be really proud of in the work that we do day to day. You know, and then a healthier community is really intentful to be action-oriented. You know, overall, we're already a very healthy community. As you may have saw, Carver County was named #1 healthiest county in Minnesota, 8th healthiest county across the nation, and actually the #1 happiest county in America. You know, so that's coming out of Carver County, but obviously we're a part of Carver County, you know, so we're playing into those results. But the interesting thing as it relates to health is Minnesota in general ranks high across the U.S. from being one of the healthiest states, but ironically, we're one of the highest in health disparity as well. So there's always room to improve and work to do as it relates to health and well-being. And healthy as it relates to community can mean so many things. So that allows us to view that in a variety of ways. And then you can see that all is capitalized. We really want to make sure that as a department, we're respecting everybody within our community, and we're providing opportunities for everybody to participate and enjoy the variety of things that we offer. So that's our vision. And then next, I'm going to share with you a focus statement. And this focus statement was really meant to be a way for us as staff to provide us some, obviously some focus, whereas in my opinion, if we do a good job in focusing on these things, ultimately it's going to support our mission and vision and allow us to be successful. So going forward, our focus is going to be a little bit more internal facing, but I want to make sure that I share it with the board here tonight. So our focus statement is, our focus combined with each staff's unique personality and passion creates our culture. Our focus will guide us towards providing positive experiences for all. To achieve this, we will create a work environment that encourages staff to be healthy, be innovative, and be inspired to make a difference, all while having fun. And then I'm one that really likes acronyms, and so we're building off of the word create. Create to me is an awesome word. It's very intentful, it's very action-oriented. It's also the second half to recreate. So building off of that, these are kind of our focus areas or focus buckets, if you will. Community building, respect for all, positive energy, a will to learn, teamwork, excellence, and then I just had to get an exclamation point in there to be able to include ideas, because I think, you know, everything starts with an idea. So that's where we're at today. It was a really great retreat with staff last week. We engaged them in getting their ideas on how to communicate our mission and our vision. So we got a lot of good things to work from there. And as it relates to our focus, it was, you know, what are the ways we can support these different focus words. And I think this will just, you know, kind of thread into our conversation as staff as we move forward. And this next slide is really a representation of how we've focused this last year. Me coming in, being new, one of my first priorities was really creating that team, the team culture. And so out of that, we did some exercises where I wanted staff to essentially define what makes a great team. And so within the letters TEAM, that represents all of our full-time and all of our part-time staff's feedback on kind of what defines a great team. And then in the circle around it, I had asked the question, what comes to mind when I say Parks and Recreation? And those were the variety of words and phrases that resonated with each of our staff. So that's kind of the outcome or the purpose of, or the result that we produce out of being a great team. And then embedded in there are the initials of all of our full-time staff. So it's kind of that thumbprint embedded in there. And then make sure we want to have City of Chaska. That's another thing is always remembering we're part of a larger team, being the city, and then our department. And so this now is a large wall vinyl within our conference room where we have a lot of our team meetings over at Parks and Recreation. So this is just a great example of, you know, what we were able to achieve over the last year by focusing on team, you know, and now if we can open that up and have some great dialogue on those other focus areas, I feel we're just going to be well suited to meet the needs of the community. Any questions, thoughts on that?
I've been part of a lot of vision and mission work. The ones that do it well live it, and there's a level of accountability. So if you come in the facility, you feel it, and you can hold each other accountable to that. Do you think it'd be fair if we were a guest at the community center and we saw this in action to catch them and say, I see that you're living out the values? Or if we were to ask them what the mission is, your staff would know what it was?
Eventually, not today,
Right.
but yes.
Right.
Yeah. So this just got introduced, and we still got to do our work to get it down to our part-time staff level. You know, we have a lot of part-time staff, but you're right. Making sure that this isn't just checking a box. You know, this is something that we got to live by, and you know, position it so it's visible and people are going about their work, you know, with this in mind is something that we want to do, you know. And that focus statement is sort of kind of, you know, one of my thoughts is kind of thinking about focus groups, you know, and how do we have intentful conversation around those types of things. So, but I'll let them know you might check in on them. So.
A question, Marshall, with, you know, the gallery there in the community center and the different art exhibits that come in and the different pieces of artwork that are in the community that have been born from work that came out of the Parks Department, do you anticipate that's going to continue to be a part of the work that you and your staff are going to be doing, or is some of that going to be spread out over different departments in the city of Chaska?
The art gallery specifically? Yeah, I think that will still fall within our department.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up because actually if we read our commissioner handbook, I think arts is technically within the title of the park board.
It always was, yes.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yep. You know, and I think arts play a big part of the community fabric, you know, and you're seeing a lot of communities and cities really embracing the arts and even incorporating policies as it relates to developments. ensuring that arts are being accounted for, just like Parkland or whatever it may be. So I think
going
there's
back-
more opportunity, there's opportunity for us to do more.
I
but I think
that
there's,
maybe
through
that would be
partnerships
a nice thing for us to kind of maybe almost re-energize, because I don't think, as a board, that we've really done a whole lot with that for a number of years, but going back to when, like, the Clover Ridge development was going in, they had the Walden Pond, Walden Park there with the Scary Heron, and then just, Washington Monument there by the school, which I don't think was really born from anything that we did, and that was more of the development, and then down the road there, we had the Exploding Rock, which were, they're interesting pieces, and then those things were, a result of efforts that came out of the Parks Department, and I think that would be a good thing for us to discuss, maybe as a board, to think that maybe there's other opportunities for us to, accentuate our community with pieces of art, in addition to what we do at the gallery.
Yeah, and I know the gallery, it draws in a lot of people.
Oh, that's true.
And with it changing out monthly, it's pretty neat to see just the different exhibits that are coming through and how people are, interpreting that space, so.
What about the auditorium and the plays and things that they have there? That falls under Parks and Rec too, does it not?
Yep.
Does your group spend a lot of time or some time really looking at what we might be able to add there to make that more used?
Yeah, I think we've got some pretty established partnerships that are doing the different productions, but you're right, I think that's another space where, if we put our minds to it, we could be a little more creative with how we're using it.
What's the usage of that now? Is it pretty well filled up, or is it half of the time that it's used, or is it?
Well, I think evenings and weekends, it's pretty well utilized. During the day, it's a little bit tougher, but, maybe being creative in how that could be more of a business type setting for a meeting or some sort of announcement. Maybe doing some different, like, training video, recording type things. Another thing we're looking at is maybe bringing in some live music, on a Friday or Saturday night in the winter or something, when people are indoors a little bit more, so.
All right, any other questions or comments for Marshall?
Nice work.
No, very nice. Good job, and thank you for the presentation on that. And so with that, we'll close out agenda item 6D. And that moves us on to 7, which is old business, and 7A being the Lions Park off-leash dog area.
Yes, okay. So this was an item actually that Michael had requested that we include on our agenda, and that was stemming from some of the comments that have been occurring on Real Life in Chaska, which I'll disclose I'm not a part of, so.
It's in Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, was good for that to be brought to my attention, and so I just really want to come forward today and make sure we're acknowledging some of that conversation that's occurring out in the community, to make sure that you all are aware of what that conversation is. And so if you bear with me, I'm going to actually read some of the comments that Michael had submitted that sort of kind of frames some of the dialogue. And then from there, I'll just provide a little bit more kind of background on how we got to here, and I think overall it's just a good kind of check-in point for the off-leash dog area, and then allow for some discussion amongst the park board. So with that, we'll just go down the list here with some of the comments. So first, I was so happy when Chaska opened 2 dog parks. Sadly, it seems all the big dogs are in the small dog park, and I am concerned my little dog will be injured. I hardly ever see a small dog there and usually leave early because of a large dog being too aggressive with my little pug. I absolutely love all dogs, but I am concerned that so many large dogs in such a small area is dangerous for my dog. They seem to view her as prey. Hopefully people will start using the large dog park soon. It is open. Okay, next comment. I tried the dog park once. I will not go back because of the big dogs in the small fenced-in area. We were there a short time because a Dalmatian was trying to tackle my small dog and stand over him. The look of terror on my puppy's eyes, I had to leave. A small dog area is needed. Next one. As a large dog owner, I agree the dogs should be separated by size, but not because my large dogs may hurt a small dog, but because of the aggressiveness of small dogs in large dog areas, and so many small dog owners don't recognize aggression in their own dogs. I have a 55-pound and 80-pound GSP, I'm not sure. We've often been nipped, chased aggressively, and growled at by dogs less than 10 pounds. The fact that a dog is small doesn't make aggression acceptable. So frustrating. As far as the Chaska Dog Park, the large dog park is a joke. It's a swampy area of land with a chain link fence and piles of wood chips dumped around a scattering of chopped off trees. I get that it's new, but I don't think it will ever be worthwhile. It's too small. Next one. The fact of the matter is that any dog of any size can be aggressive. It's the responsibility of the owner to be on top of such behavior. We have had so many attacks by two particular dogs at this park that we have stopped going. The owners of the dogs do not seem to care if their dogs are aggressive and stomp on other small dogs. We now drive to other parks where we haven't had this problem. Next one. I had the same exact experience with my 12-pound dog at the dog park. Big dogs just would go right after him, and he's tiny and would try to play, and he is very happy and social, but would get scared, and honestly, I would be scared for him too. Sadly, I was waiting for the large dog park to open before we went back, because having a small dog park and another large dog park is a great idea, and it works in other parks. Carver Park Dog Park has two separate parks, and it's great for small dogs to play with other small dogs and be safe. If the Chaska one is now open to all dogs, sadly, we won't be going anymore, and that is such a bummer because we were so happy that it opened. I'm going to have to contact the Parks and Rec and voice a concern. Next one. I'm really bummed that we can't use the Chaska Dog Park. We have a small dog, and he's scared of big, hyper dogs. What we thought was going to be the small dog area is overrun with huge, playful dogs. The huge, wooded, fenced-in area that we thought was going to be for the big dogs was mostly empty. Next one. I've had big dogs and small dogs. They are all dogs. Problem is with the human not properly exposing their furry friends and/or a training barrier. My current gentle giant will lay down and stay completely still on command, yet the little dogs still bite with absolutely no threat. Again, people issue, not a puppy issue. And then lastly, it's really frustrating that people can't just follow the rules on the posted signs. The Shakopee Park is the same way. People bring their large, unruly dogs there and put them in the small dog area because they can't control them well enough not to lose them in the big area. The last time I was there, a pit mix and a Rottweiler were loose in the small dog area, and the lady with them said they were dog aggressive and not to come in. Why even bring a dog aggressive dog to an off-leash park? Why bring a dog with no recall to an off-leash dog park? So a lot going on there. But there's definitely some themes there. And I think what I want to do is sort of recall some of our thought process into how we positioned our off-leash dog areas. Because this was an item we discussed quite extensively because we knew it was a little controversial. And I think, what we had talked about was the fact that in our research, we had noticed by visiting a lot of off-leash dog areas that while they were defining them as small dog areas and large dog areas, people weren't necessarily abiding by it. And so it kind of led us down that road to maybe think about it differently, because if nobody's there day to day to enforce it, maybe we should look at this a little bit differently. The other thing is we had surveyed our community, and we had pretty good response, and we found that less than 30% of our survey respondents owned a dog that would meet the typical small dog criteria, which was 25 pounds or less. We also acknowledge the fact that there are some places where there's a small dog definition, but they allow for large dogs that are maybe older or less agile. So I recall that some of that conversation, we felt that could be potentially confusing. We also didn't shy away from this concept either. It was part of one of the stations we had had dialogue with the community when we had our open house event and a few other events where we had community gatherings such as Bark in the Park and the Fire and Ice. So we had opportunity to talk about this concept with people, and I think in general, the reaction was such that, it wasn't enough for us as, as a board to sway. And so I think the other part of it too that we had talked about was these two areas present themselves as different environments too. One's more of that open, grassy kind of backyard environment, and the other one's more of that wooded kind of natural trail environment. And we had talked about, maybe they're just two different experiences, aside from the size of the dog, because those experiences may be a little more favorable depending more on the breed, not necessarily on the size. We had also said too, let's maybe give this a try, knowing if there was a lot of negative reaction, we can certainly define it more if we needed to. But if we defined it right from the get-go as small dog and large dog areas, you can never really look at the model we have in place right now. And so I think in general, the other thing for us to keep in mind, we certainly, want to acknowledge this feedback. Obviously, we want a safe and welcoming place for the community to bring their dogs. But also, this is still a new amenity for the community. I think the way we're referring to the two areas is sort of playing into this a little bit too, because even as staff, we're referring to the areas as the small area and the large area. And I think people are maybe interpreting that as the definition of the areas. And so then when they're hearing that, oh, that's really not the definition, it's causing kind of that conundrum a little bit. But that, if we maybe refer to them as Area 1 and Area 2 being the wooded area, that I don't think we've really seen its full potential yet. We haven't really created really good awareness that it exists yet. And so my thought is, once we do that, ideally, we're going to see, a little bit more spreading out of where people are taking their dogs that might alleviate some of this. So that's been some of the feedback I've given to people that have contacted me directly.
How many people do you think have contacted you directly? So, and I'm not discounting the, what we're seeing on the boards out there.
Yep.
But I also think that there's you have to put forward an effort to make a phone call.
Yep.
So I'm wondering what kind of level of feedback you've gotten.
Yeah, so I think out of here, I've had 2 people that contacted me directly.
And then, I mean, that's not to say because I think people will just stop going, right? So it's hard to gauge that, but I think it's easier to post comments online than it is to maybe pick up the phone and make an effort to call. So I think that's
Yeah.
important to understand. But I
Yep.
think that the phased opening is very much fed the sense of, well, we're all going to be in this spot until the back part's open, and then people will spread out more. And I think that you hit on it exactly where you said, I don't know that people know the back part is even open and ready. But I think that there was a sense, even at the grand opening event last year, that, well, this is what we've got for now. And then when that's done, the big dogs will go back there, and this will be more that area for the smaller dogs or the slower dogs or the older dogs or whatever who don't want as much space, who don't really want to run free and really are just there to play with other dogs. So
Yep.
I think that was very much a perception out there when we opened it, and that's we're seeing some of the ramifications of that now.
Yep. And it hasn't helped with the winter and the very wet spring we've had too, with that, the area in the woods has just been slow to come on board. So people just haven't had the chance to use that area yet.
And the time frame from which most of those comments were pulled, is that going back to when most of the dogs were still utilizing primarily the smaller area because of that wet spring?
Most likely, yeah. I think a lot of these comments were about a month ago, somewhere in there.
Because I don't know that there's been as much, posting on that site recently. I mean, I know a lot of you read, Real Life in Chaska as well, but I think a lot of them, there was a bit of a flare up there, and there was a lot of, which I think is healthy. I think it's great that people that have a forum, they can go and they can express themselves and they can interact there, and
Yep.
I think that helps build that community.
Yeah,
in
some
with
people
that
was
dog
expecting
park.
a bigger park. When I go there, they go like, oh, this is too small, the big area for the larger dogs. That's the first reaction. And they go like, oh, this is not finished yet. Because for some reason they think it's not finished. So I don't know what and then they go to the flat, grassy park and take the dogs over there. Because the other one is finished, according to them. I hear a lot of that when I go there. There was this couple, walking the dog in the big area, and they go, oh, they haven't done anything here yet. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know, and they get out and go to the small one because it's finished. It's just so different, thoughts about they were expecting a bigger one, like, I don't know, maybe they went to the Victoria or the biggest one, but we explained to them how big,
Yeah.
the big area is gonna be. But now they go there and they walk around, and it's just, they just see the fence, like one of the comments, and just good chips. And they go like, this is not finished. I don't know what they.
Interesting, yeah.
And about the small and big dogs, one of the comments is like, the small dogs, they always, we know they're aggressive. And of course, they're dogs. If a bigger dog is there, and the tiny one goes there and do something, they're dogs, they're gonna react. So it's more like, the other one says it's the owners of the dogs to control them.
Yep.
Because I got a pit bull, and my dog was attacked for those French bulls, 2. And the owner blamed my dog because of the attack. And the husband was there, and the husband was like, honey, your dog is so mean. And that happens a lot. Some people protect the little ones because they think because they're little, they're super nice. I mean, my dog didn't do anything being a pit bull, because I was there. So, and she's still blaming my dog. I wasn't here. It was, I wasn't Victoria. So, but that happens a lot. And people have to understand they are still dogs. If they're trained or not, if some little one goes there to the big one and they start to bark and bark, it's going to annoy the big one. So some of those comments, I just got flashbacks from my dog, those dog owners, sometimes they're so protective. They think that every big dog is going to attack the little one. And that's not true. Yeah. I mean, I went in the small one, some people don't know that dogs are territorial, They just jump at the top of the small one and do this, and that's it. And they think they're being attacked. That's just a dog acting like a dog. They know how they react, The big ones or the small one doesn't matter. So we have to kind of be really not be concerned about all that. Just be so clear what they really mean, because it's a lot of bad. We fought a lot for this dog part, to get all this bad. So they have to understand that dogs are gonna react. And then, we never want to define that space as a small dog because some people's gonna be like, oh, I can't get my old dog. I remember that. We kind of discussed about that. So the thing is, when the other one wasn't open, everybody was in the small area. So, and I went there and I didn't see a lot, a bad fights between dogs. Just being I'm the boss here, but not doing something else. So, and people was upset. I saw this lady from the, one of the trailer parks in Brandondale. She brought a big dog, and she was blaming every single dog. They were attacking her dog. It's like, where are you seeing that? I was there, and I talked to her. You have to be you don't have to be concerned. Dogs are dogs, And then this lady approached to her, explaining how dogs react. It's not like if you seen him just running to your dog, it's gonna be attacked. It's not. And she was freaking out. Oh, that's a big dog. This is a mean dog. Just pointing every single dog. And probably she's one of them because she always was complaining about that. So her dog never got attacked, but she was so protected. And probably.
Do we think we've done enough to promote the fact that the back part is open?
No.
No.
Yeah, we got opportunity to promote that more. We just actually, if you haven't been out there recently, they just finalized all the trail paving this last week, Friday. I was out there this morning, actually met with one of our community service officers as well, just to kind of talk through all this, and really requested them, just based on the community dialogue, to have a little bit more of a presence there to check in once in a while. I think that can help too, to kind of help keep people accountable to the rules we had set forth. Some of it too, I think we might end up sort of being up against human nature to just go to the closest one. I did walk it off. It's only 200 steps from the front one to the back one. So I was thinking maybe we even put that on some sort of sign, 200 steps ahead.
Something we should do,
Yeah.
Just some signs to the bridge, the new bridge.
Yep.
It's not necessary, but what else we can do to,
So you don't think people know about the
don't
wooded
think
dog?
they
I've talked to so many people that have been there, and just through simple word of mouth, I feel like through osmosis, you'd get it by just being in that area.
But is there,
Is there a way to respond to any people that have comments Need some audio for your microphone.
Is there any way to respond to any of the Facebook comments people have made so someone from the city can make them aware that this back part is there and open and available?
Yeah, so it's, it was my understanding that one of the commenters had made everybody aware in the thread my contact information. Because again, I'm not on Real Life with Chaska, so I can't respond directly through that platform. But I believe that's why some of them contacted me individually. And then that gave me the ability to respond back.
If someone here is on that page, perhaps they could start a new post alerting people to the fact that the back part is open, and so there's room for dogs to spread out a little bit more and not have to be confined to that front area. I'm not on the page, but I would imagine.
When I've talked to people who are in that front area, or even in the back area, it's not always that they don't, people with big dogs that are in the front area, they actually like that experience better. It's wide open, it's drier, it's just more connected versus kind of remote. Maybe they're concerned about bugs. So the people I've talked to, it's not that they're not aware of it, they just prefer it. So I guess given the policy or the of that not being a small off-leash dog area, there's not a whole lot to fix, it seems, if that, at least for those folks who
Right.
just prefer that small, experience.
Well, it's part of it too, that if you're in the big area that your dog takes off and, there's trees between you and the dog. Where that open area, you can watch them from, corner to corner and feel a little bit safer that, the dogs are okay.
Yeah, or if let's say you don't want to walk in the woods, to be part of nature, but you really want your dog to be in a group of dogs so
Yeah.
that he's exhausted in about 20 minutes. That's the reason I used to take him to the front area or other dog parks where there was a lot of dogs in close proximity. It wasn't that there wasn't an alternative, but it was more that it was just that type of experience.
Sounds like there's a lot of dog owners represented on the board, so that's good to have that voice. I was curious, if a dog does get injured, what is protocol?
Well, so on our rules board, with any emergency, it's to call 911. And really contacting the police department is where animal control resides. And that's where it gets a little interesting too, even just from a following the rules perspective and, when to call that in or not, because it's hard after the fact, to report it. We're not able to then follow up on the specific matter or with that particular dog owner regarding the possibility of somebody's aggressive dog behavior. But, it is one of our rules that if a dog is expressing aggressive behavior, that they're supposed to leave immediately. But that's open to interpretation. And I think that's something that we just got to be mindful of. And, that was how we went about creating our rules is, we want to make sure that they were creating a sense of safety, but also realizing the ability to enforce it can be difficult without having somebody there actually overseeing it.
Would you be made aware if there was a call, and have you received any where there's known injury?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it goes through chain of command.
Yeah.
I think a comment was made earlier that, I don't know that you or your staff should be responsible for monitoring Real Life Chaska. I think the board is good to be an ear on it and put it there, but the real mechanism is to share directly with you and your staff if there's concern, right? Yeah. Just would hate to have you guys be responsible for monitoring a third-party website of concerned citizens.
The dog park's has it been a year since the small one opened yet?
No,
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 that
it was
not yet a
cold.
year.
It was last fall,
opened in the
October.
fall. Yeah, so we're still at a
And we
beginning
always, I
stages.
think we always said in this thing, we're gonna see how things go and then we'll adjust kind of on the fly if, we need to make some changes in the things. And maybe one of the things we should think about is, go out to the public and say, look, this was the idea and how we were gonna do this, and we want to review it in September, okay? That we're gonna let it run a cycle, and then we'll get another, input from the community. We'll have a meeting in someplace and sit down and look for good ideas on how we might be able to improve the parks, improve the usage, improve the interactions to make sure that, the dogs are happy, the owners are happy, the city's happy, everything's getting better.
Yep.
Because like you said, we didn't necessarily nail it the first time, and we knew we wouldn't, we knew we were gonna have to make some adjustments.
Yep.
And maybe, there's things that you can do with the dog parks themselves to make them better. Maybe the wooded area needs to be cleared out in an area, so you get an open, like the one off of 41, where there's a nice broad open area out there along with the trails that go on the outer corners of the things. Or maybe the small one needs to be subdivided, that, it needs to be a section that is in fact small dogs. I don't know, but there's several things that we could be taking a look at to make improvements.
Yep. And one thing that's going to help kick us off with that is, we have an event coming up this Thursday. We're doing a pet adoption event that we're partnering with the Animal Humane Society, but we're also inviting a professional dog trainer that's going to be on site and be talking about kind of proper dog etiquette when utilizing an off-leash dog area. So I think there's some opportunity for us to kind of provide some of that education around good etiquette and being a responsible dog owner to utilize these areas as well. So that'll be another way where we can kind of gauge the public, to your point.
Yeah, but one of the things I'm sure we don't want to do is you don't want to take a look at the number of complaints you're getting, and if they go down, say, oh, it's getting better. No, those people have gone away. So I think we've got to take these people pretty seriously, pretty quickly, and let them know that we do want to make improvements. We do want to make sure everybody, has a good experience there.
Yep.
And I believe that a lot of what Ernesto shared with us is pretty representative of what people experience when they go to dog parks, not just ours.
Yeah.
And that I also believe, in my personal experience and having taken a dog to a dog park over, a number of years, that you kind of learn how to get along. You learn how that community gets built, and it happens organically as you bring your dog there more and more frequently. You start to know the other people there at the dog park by their dog's name. And you learn how people get along. These things form communities. People get to know each other. They see each other at the same time. They kind of get into routines, and then things can kind of self-police from there to a degree, because I don't think anybody's going to the dog park trying to have a bad experience. And from there, I think that having it as an ongoing agenda item for this board is a good idea. Let's check in. How's it going? What are you hearing? And I think that we can continue to have these discussions, and we can evolve it into what we want it to be that way. And we can also continue to talk about, well, what are the kinds of tools that we might be able to provide for the community as they try and get better at having better experiences at the dog park, which was why we had the link that we put into the packet for this month, and that was dog park etiquette. So what are some of the do's and don'ts? And I think having something like that, maybe even in pamphlet form, that we could have out there at the dog park to distribute, where people could read that and they could get, if they didn't know, they would start to maybe get a better sense of the kinds of do's and don'ts that they would want to adhere to, the things that they would want to make sure that they understood as far as, how they can better train their dog to be a better participant at the park. And to make sure that, they aren't bringing dogs in that maybe don't have vaccinations and things like that, which, you would think that would be somewhat commonsensical, but it's a good idea to get it out there in a way that they would be educated. So I think those kinds of things, I'd advocate for us to be proactive in trying to provide that kind of help to the community as we try and build the park into the best it can be.
How do you plan to get the information out that the larger area is open now? As you said, you thought there were a lot of people who weren't aware of that.
Yeah, I think through social media is one mechanism, on our website, but also just on-site, some sort of signage,
Yeah, I think
informing
signage would
people
help.
that, that there's another area. So, because you don't even see it when you're in that front area. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know it's there, so.
Right.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion on the dog park? All right, well, hearing none, nope, I'm
Can,
sorry.
before we finish the thing, should there be something put together, Marshall, as far as a plan on how we're gonna address these issues? Or are you just gonna, do you just wanna think about it for a while and what's best to do, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I just wanted to make sure I brought forward the comments so that the entire board is aware of the talk in the community, so to speak. And it was really helpful for me to hear your guys' thoughts and ideas, and that'll give me the means to go back and put together a plan.
You know, and as a staff, you can go ahead and implement things as you see fit. It's not
Yep.
like we need a motion or it's something that needs to go to the council. I mean, you guys can engage. I mean, you've getting the feedback from the community and from the board here.
Yep.
You know, I think, staff is empowered to do what, you feel is best.
Sure. Yeah, and I think let's implement a few of these things, give it some time, keep an ear to the comments in the community, and continue to improve. And, I like your idea of maybe coming back kind of at the 1-year anniversary mark and maybe just resurveying or re-engaging the community, so. Because in the end, we're here to serve the community.
That's why.
And this is the community's off-leash dog area, and, all right, should we go on to the next agenda item?
I think so. So with that, next up, we have the mountain bike trail update.
All right, so this project also continues to evolve. We're not there yet. So as you recall, one of the areas in the far eastern section of the right-of-way of the trail project had been turned over by MnDOT to Carver County. And so we had been working with Carver County on essentially obtaining some sort of limited use permit with them, similar to how we were getting a permit through MnDOT. And as we explored that further, in working with Carver County's attorneys, they felt that it would be best suited to actually turn over that right-of-way to the city of Chanhassen. And so that got brought forward to Carver County Commission back in May, and that's where they made the formal decision to essentially legally turn over that right-of-way to Chanhassen. So with that, now we're working with Chanhassen on that section of land. Internally, we've had to modify our memorandum of understanding that now would be a 3-way agreement between the city of Chaska, the city of Chanhassen, and then the Carver Trails volunteer group. So Chanhassen's attorneys reviewed that memorandum of understanding. They had a few recommendations. Our attorney reviewed those, were agreeable to them. So that's good to go. However, the city of Chanhassen is not going to act on that memorandum of understanding until the legal transaction of that right-of-way gets transferred from Carver County to Chanhassen. It's my understanding that could could take several weeks yet. I think as they're looking into that further, there's some legal complications and definitions on that specific piece of land that they need to figure out. So that's kind of in progress, so to speak. And then as it relates to MnDOT, we still haven't heard back on that application. I did get just an update from the individual we've been working with, and that their central office had reviewed it. They had a couple questions, and that we should be hearing back sometime shortly on that MnDOT section. So once we hear back from MnDOT, hopefully that's a successful communication back, that we get the limited use permit. From there, then the next step would be for us to apply for a work permit through MnDOT to actually conduct the work on that specific property. Of all the areas, the MnDOT right-of-way is the larger area, so I think it makes sense for us to work with Carver Trails and get started on that area, you know, and then in the hopes that somewhere along that line, we would hear back from Chanhassen and Carver County on that far eastern section of that land. So it's just one of those situations where it's, you know, we don't own the land and we're working with multiple agencies to get this figured out, but still pushing forward to try to make this happen. And, you know, it's just going to take some time. And I actually met with Tim Bosberg from Carver Trails this afternoon just to give him an update of where things are at. And, you know, he understood and is still very excited just at the thought of this coming about in the near future. And then one thing I'll share, I don't know if you heard, is just kind of in relation to mountain biking, is the fact that there's going to be some new off-road single-track mountain bike trails that are going to get built in the Carver County Park Reserve. And so that's going to be a project where the Three Rivers Park District has received some funding through actually the Lifetime Fitness Foundation. They have a foundation specific to mountain biking. I think it's called Single Track Mind Foundation. And so that foundation is funding the installation of, I believe, 10 to 12 miles of trails over there in Carver Park Reserve. And then Three Rivers Park District, along with, I believe, Carver County Parks, will be supporting it through the ongoing maintenance over time. So that's apparently going to be happening or starting this fall. So I think that's exciting news for this area of the metro, you know, and I still think that the project we're working on fits right within that, you know, having that kind of smaller entry-level facility really provides the ability not only for, you know, the students that are on the mountain bike club team, but also, you know, those in the community that are just interested in taking up that sport. I think we'll have that nice practice facility, and then they can graduate over to the larger facilities around the metro. So that's exciting news. Yep. Any questions on that project?
All right, thanks for the update on that, Marshall. So moving on, we have bicycle-friendly community update.
All right, so keeping the theme with cycling. So this, I believe that was in your packet. We included the, essentially the initial draft assessment that Bike MN had put together based on kind of a community stakeholder meeting we had conducted last fall around this idea of becoming more of a bicycle-friendly community, with the goal of ultimately applying through the National Bike Alliance to receive a designation as a bicycle-friendly community. And so that assessment really is now providing us kind of a guideline on how to best position ourselves to put together a strong application. Essentially, I think the big takeaways, right out of the gate are A, the recommendation that we do not apply for it this coming August. They felt that, we're doing a lot of great things here in Chaska, but there were some things that we could implement in the next year or two that would definitely position our application better. The one thing we need to keep in mind is it relates to that application is once we apply, we would need to wait 4 more years before we could reapply. So the goal is to try to get us in the best position as we can to get a successful designation. And so I think some of the kind of the initial steps I'll be working on are A, creating an active transportation advisory group. So that was one of the recommendations. Essentially putting together a diverse group of community stakeholders to help then kind of rally and help implement some of the recommendations that were within that report. And so my thought is once we get that group developed, I'll then coordinate with our city administrator to get on a city council agenda. And then I would invite Bike MN to come back and present to the city council the findings and recommendations of that report. And obviously I want to have you all at that city council meeting as well, but I really want to make sure that the city council is aware and supporting the work that this advisory group would then go out and attempt to carry out based on the recommendations. And then lastly, one of the recommendations was to ensure that some of these initiatives are within our 2040 comprehensive plan. And so I think I have time to still submit that. We're nearing the very end of our submittal. But even had we already submitted, I can always make an addendum to our plan, but I think there's opportunity for me to get that language in there, which then just helps position us in the future that the work that we're carrying out is in line with what we set forth in our overall comp plan. So I'm excited to continue that work. I've been partnering a lot with Carver County's Public Health Services on that initiative as well. And, as part of that advisory group, definitely be looking to have one for sure, if not 2 members of the park board to be a part of that advisory group as well. So be thinking about that.
Thanks, Marshall. Any questions? All right. So with that, moving on, agenda item 7D, Firemen's Part 2 update.
All right. So this will probably just be an ongoing item on our park board agendas going forward, just so I'm keeping you all informed of the status of this park. I think from the last time we met, we had talked about the idea of obtaining right of first refusal with the school district. And so we did go ahead and do that. So essentially what that does is if the school district were to get an offer on that, that land, they would notify us and we would have the ability to match or counter whatever that offer is. So that's a good safeguard for us to have. Really, the only other update as it pertains to Firemen's 2, obviously we haven't been notified of any interest as of yet. We did inform the school district that we feel while it's kind of in this state of being for sale, that it should be the school district's responsibility to maintain that park. We've contacted their facilities division, to which they're now going to maintain it one of their requests of us was that we remove the current Firemen's 2 Park sign. The school district felt that that may be confusing to a potential developer or buyer of that land, to which we've complied. You know, they do own the land, so they have the ability to request that of us. I did reach out to one of the residents that I've been in communication with regarding that, just as a heads up, so it didn't, you know, potentially
Cause concern.
that it was getting sold or anything like that. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that as well. And then on the back end, you know, one of our goals all along was this idea of working with St. John's Lutheran Church and doing some sort of joint agreement on a neighborhood park on their site. And so we've had some, you know, real initial discussions with them. The good news is they've expressed interest. They're on board with that concept. So we look forward to having further discussions with them in the near future on what that might look like. So that's it for that update.
Questions for Marshall and Fireman's Park 2? All right, so with that closes out old business and moves us on to agenda item number 8, which is to receive the council and planning meeting minutes. And we have minutes from April 1st, April 15th, and May 6th for the council, and March 13th and April 10th for the planning. So there's a lot of paper there. But was there anything that came out of those minutes that anyone had any question or comment on at this point? Nope. There were a few things I saw in there that were related to parks, but I didn't really see anything there that would really, like I saw it was conversation worthy at this stage, so no comments there. So with that, why don't we go ahead and we'll just close out of agenda item. There's no motion required, just to receive those minutes. So that moves us on to item number 9, staff reports, department happenings.
All right. I just decided to keep standing here. So.
I thought Mary would take this one.
Yeah, so as always, the opportunity to highlight some of the activities going on within our department. So this is a report that the staff inputs in their activities into. And man, there's a lot going on. You know, it's summertime, things are happening, it's the transition of seasons, the splash pads are up and running, concessions is going, people are going to the beach. You know, it's fun to see us kind of come out of that brutal winter and spring and now see everybody out enjoying the parks and the trails and whatnot. You know, this is a pretty impressive list of things going on. I had a hard time even picking which things to highlight. But they are in the packet. They are available, you know, to the public to review them all. But a few things I do want to point out, just looking back at some of the activities last month, really neat partnership with the Eastern Carver Community Education. You know, working with them on obtaining a grant through Alina Health and essentially providing some Zumba classes for some of the Hispanic women that live down at the Riverview Terrace community. And so it's really neat to see us partnering with other entities to create some resources to provide programming for that community. So there's going to be 6 classes that we're going to offer, and then in the end, we're going to end up creating a DVD that each of these women will have available to them to essentially be able to do some of their workouts on their own at home. So neat deal there. You may have seen on some of our social media, we've been doing Missy, our fitness trainer, our has been doing a Tuesday trainer spotlight. And so it's showcasing our personal training staff and our group fitness instructors, which I just think is a really neat way for the community to get to know them a little bit more as real people. And you know, kind of that neat factor when you then come to a class and there's that person in front of the room leading the class that you get to know a little bit more about. The daycare numbers at the community center continue to impress me. So looking at the first 5 months of this year, we're averaging close to 900 visits per month. Compared to the previous year, looking at the same 5 months, we had an average of just shy of 700 visits a month. So that just goes to show membership's growing, people are engaged, bringing their kids to the community center. I always say, people in the door, that's what we're all about. So that's great to see those numbers growing. This time of year, we're seeing a lot more activity at the event center, within the Curling and Event Center. It's wedding season, graduations, prom events, things like that. So that's up and running. You recall we had a presentation a while back to look into that park run program. And so we've been working on trying to get that up and running behind the scenes. We had planned for kind of a mock run to occur a couple of weeks ago. The route that we were looking at, though, was along the levee. And with the river, I thought by now the river would have went down, but it's just not happening. And so we've got to explore potentially an entire different route altogether. Just looking ahead to the future, I think, you know, we're pretty susceptible for that trail underneath the 41 bridge tends to flood. So we're going to look at a different route and see if we can bring the community together maybe a little bit later in the summer, just to experience, you know, what that run can look like, and ideally create more awareness to try to find a willing individual that would want to volunteer and kind of lead that community initiative to offer a park run here in Chaska. The first block party reservation occurred this last June 1st. So that's another thing to bring attention to the community. This is a free thing that we offer as a city Parks and Recreation Department. It's essentially a wagon that has all the things necessary to host a really fun block party. So it's got the tables, the chairs, all the different yard games, things like that. You can just call into the Parks and Recreation office to reserve it. One of the staff will deliver it to the location for the community, and then we pick it up afterwards. So it's just a great way to get your neighborhood together and have some fun. With that too, we're also going to utilize that block party wagon a little bit more. We're rolling out a new program called Recreation on Wheels. So we're actually designating some specific parks where we're going to bring that block party wagon to, you know, make the people aware in that residential area, and then there'll be some staff there facilitating some of the games with the kids in the neighborhood folks. So really looking forward to that new program. We talked a little bit about the dog adoption event, so a reminder, that's coming up this Thursday over at the off-leash dog area. They're going to offer some fun things too, such as a dog parade and best dressed outfit and selfies with your dog and all that, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And then also we've got a new event, Kids Night at the Clay Hole. Another great partnership where we're really being intentful on being inclusive with our events. So this is going to be a partnership with the Inclusive Communities Coalition, in other words, or otherwise known as ICONIC, the District 112 Special Ed staff, and then also Carver County Parks. So it's going to feature bounce houses, carnival games that are going to have modifications for those with special needs. There's going to be face painting, music. There's going to be adaptable arts activities. There's going to be an inclusive, what is it? I think it was like some sort of like geo-caching type thing through Carver County that's fully adaptive as well. So really looking forward to that activity, which will be on Wednesday, June 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. over at Firemen's Park. And then as we speak, we've currently got advertised a full-time position for the Curling and the Event Center that I'd shared with you a while back. That is going to be a Curling and Event Center coordinator position. This position will be working the hours of weekday evenings and weekends. So looking to just build upon the staffing model there and provide kind of some full-time support to deliver some of the customer service needs throughout the evenings and weekends at that facility. That's actually been advertised through USA Curling. It was featured in their Curling News magazine just recently. So I expect we're going to see some interest potentially nationwide for that position. And then I wanted to talk about the Par 30 project. So last week, the City Council had a work session, which was overall an opportunity for the folks through Learning Links to provide an update on that project with the understanding that a lot of the City Council members are new and weren't necessarily here back when this project was introduced. And so our city administrator really wanted to make sure they were up to date with where that project currently is, because as I forwarded an email to you earlier today, on June 24th, there's going to be essentially a community engagement where the intent will be for the Learning Links group to share the initial concept plans. And so this is going to begin some of that community engagement. And so that work session last week was to provide city council members with some of the information related to that project. And so I know Commissioner Downs, you may have wanted to talk about this a little bit further.
Yeah, I wanted to chat a little bit about it. Fortunately for me, I guess, I'm going to be on vacation and not going to be able to attend that meeting on the thing, but I don't know how many people here were at that presentation a year ago when they first rolled that out and what they were going to do with the Par 30. Was there anybody there? The meeting a year ago was a different tenor than this one. Were you at the one a year ago or not, Marshall?
No.
A year ago, they were talking about how they were going to have some pretty renowned architects, golf architects, that were going to design different greens for the update on the thing, and they were going to, the funding that they were going to go after was an awful lot of corporate funding to be able to pay for all this stuff. And they had drawings, plans laid out of what they were going to do with the golf course, as far as there was going to be 3 holes that were going to be turned into a driving range teaching area, and 4 times when they would be having these teaching sessions. And then at other times it would be turned back into the 3 holes, so you'd still have 9 holes. So they could keep up the participation that they currently have with the leagues and things that are there. And this meeting And they also talked about having an awful lot done from the time they presented a year ago to now. And I was really disappointed in the meeting that they had recently, and that they really haven't done much, if anything, in that year's time. That they're now talking about it's going to be as soon as early, at the earliest, next year before they'd be able to break ground on any of the improvements on the thing. And I don't know what our position is on this thing, you know, because it doesn't fall under Parks and Rec per se on the thing, whether we're gonna get involved in this, because it's, right now, the Par 30 is dying, okay? That it's the infrastructure that's there in the irrigation system needs to be replaced, and it needed to be replaced a couple of years ago. And the city has got $500,000 to be able to do that, but they want to put it together with this improvement plan at the same time to be able to get the whole shebang going at once. But the participation that they've got at the Par 30 golf-wise is barely enough to break even without funding any improvements on the thing. And example, I don't know how many of you play golf over there at all, but I've been there 3 times this year, and I think the most I've seen on the course when I've been playing is 8 people. Okay, that's, you know, that's incredible. You know, a couple of them were really nice days. So it's just it's a funny feeling that this, you know, they're trying to do some things differently than what they said they were going to do last year, a year ago, and they haven't made the progress that they plan to do to date. It doesn't feel right. The whole thing just doesn't fit, you know, what they initially planned in that. And I feel that, you know, there's really leery about this whole thing. And I don't know what we need to do, if anything, if we need to participate in being able to help the situation, or, you know, keep our mouth shut. You know, we're not part of that organization on the thing, but it's not the way everybody thought that it was going to be a year ago at that time. So I'd be interested if some of you, and maybe it's just you, Marshall, that goes to this thing in 3 weeks' time, or however long it is until it goes, to really see what's going on and what's planned, because it's like I said, I'm concerned with the project and the way it's heading at this point.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the update on that, Dave, and sharing that with us. Again, it is not under the jurisdiction of the Parks Department, you know, with golf, but I think all of us as citizens here at Chaska would be, certainly any of us that golf would have an interest in that.
Yeah, it's a real gem, you know, for the city. If there was some changes made to it, and if it was treated as a real asset, and if it was, you know, promoted and managed, you know, if my experience in business has always been that if you're going to make something successful, you got to have someone that's going to focus on that success. And I don't think we have it now to be able to make it more successful than just, you know, the inertia that's going forward from past experience on the thing, and that's not carrying us very well at this point.
I do plan to try and get involved in this project.
I'm sorry?
I do plan on getting involved in this project. One of the presenters last week reached out to me, just as a big golf person that I am, and I'm planning to attend the meeting in a couple of weeks. And I agree with you in part that I wasn't at the meeting a year ago, but I do agree with you in the marketing. You have to stumble across the Par 30. You have to know that it's there. I even went golfing there on Sunday. The weather wasn't nice, but there was just 2 other people out there. So I think whatever is going to take place there, the marketing has to be there. You have to promote it, but as it stands now, even promoting it, I don't think will bring people in. The improvements have to be made.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot of room for improvement out there, but it's not only if we build it better, they will come. You know, we've got to have a plan to be able to have them come along with it. And it'd be great, I think, if Parks and Recs got involved with some of that and became, you know, closer to it and kind of, you know, folded some of the promotion under the Parks and Recs umbrella.
Yeah, and I mean, even though, you know, as far as the park board involvement in terms of, you know, making, you know, obviously, this isn't a project where it's coming through the park board where you all are making the recommendation. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get involved in the process, just as citizens of Chaska. And so I would encourage you to get involved as much as you can. I can share that the folks with Learning Links have been reaching out to myself and some of the other staff within Parks and Recreation, because I really think that they feel that this site really lends itself to different programming, you know, and knowing that as a Park and Recreation department, obviously we're a partner with the golf course staff, you know, so we're certainly here as a Park and Rec department to help promote, you know, we'll find ways to promote it any way we can, and especially from a programming standpoint, to try to get groups out there and expose them to that particular course. So.
Well, thanks again for shedding light on that and the discussion that we've had here. So
Yeah, and I just have a couple more
okay.
Things that I wanted to highlight. Another great thing going on is we've got an intern for the summer. Her name's Rebecca Gleason. She came to us from St. Cloud State, and we have her working on a park inventory project. And so one of the things that, you know, I feel we're lacking is, you know, how we're positioning and highlighting all of our great amenities, that being our parks within our community. There's just not much of a presence on the website. And so she is going around and literally inventorying every park, down to how many parking stalls are at each one, how many bathrooms, what's the length of the fields, you know, all the details. And what's really cool about it is we're going to be partnering with Carver County's GIS, and ultimately this will become kind of an interactive story map. So you'll be able to essentially click on a park on a map, and then off to the side it'll kind of display pictures and all the different amenities that particular park has. So I think it'll be a great resource for the community, but it will also even be a really good resource for staff internally, just as we, you know, field requests for a softball tournament and, you know, what are the facilities at the park, things like that. So that's a great project we're working on. And then last but certainly not least, wanted to acknowledge obviously the recent passing of our former Park Commission member, Nick Mason. You know, he provided tremendous service for the community and for our park board, and fought a long battle with cancer. And so as a reminder, there's going to be a celebration of his life coming up this Thursday. From 4 to 5 will be the welcome reception. From 5 to 5:30, there's going to be a Remembering Nick segment, and then from 5:30 to 7, there will be a continuing the celebration. And that's going to be over at the event center. And one of the things that you'll hear if you attend is I had a meeting with his wife, Anna, and one of Nick's wishes regarding his memorial was to give back to Chaska Parks. And so I met with Anna and another individual to talk about setting up some, basically a fund through a foundation. And one of the things we talked about was around the idea of starting a scholarship fund. And that really resonated with Anna. She felt that Nick would really embrace that idea. One of the things she said, Nick often said, was everybody deserves a chance. And so by setting up this scholarship fund, I think it really fulfills one of his philosophies. And then that's something too, over time, we'll look to continue to fund that scholarship and essentially create some funding that kind of plays into our vision that I talked about, and making sure that we're providing opportunities for all people in our community to be able to participate in our programs, especially those that may not be able to afford them. So looking forward to setting that up and celebrating Nick.
All right, well said, Marshall. Okay, so that concludes item number 9 of staff reports, and so that moves us on to item 10 of other business, which at this point we kind of go into our round table, so I got to decide which side I start with. So Commissioner Udermann, would you like to start with any comments you may have?
Yeah, so good opportunity to get 2 free practice round tickets for the LPGA this week if you're a Chaska resident. They're going fast, and there's a lot of interest in the opening hours of it, so looking forward to that and some volunteer opportunities. Second, Pat Smith, Chaska native, won, and he qualified for the USA World Wrestling Championship. That'll be in Kazakhstan. So Chaska resident, that's pretty cool, or former Chaska resident. Your Chaska Cubs to play athletic field, 11-0 as of last night. It's pretty awesome. And then another record, 31-0. A 3.5-year-old from Chaska has visited all 31 city parks, so I wanted to give a little high five to a little youngster, 3.5. She might be in bed right now, but what a fun experience to check out all the parks.
Thanks, Matt. Commissioner Downs?
I don't have anything else. I'm not going to be at the meeting next month. I'm going to be up at the cottage on Lake Huron. Anybody that wants anything, too bad.
All right. Nothing.
I'm looking forward to seeing what more we can do about the dog parks, and I'm also looking forward to the city meeting on the 17th. That's it for me.
Okay. Any updates from the clay hole?
No, things are looking busy, but it's fun. Lifeguards are having fun over there, and people are having fun too.
I see a lot of little kids bounce around on that splash pad when it's hot out.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. All right, thanks. Jason?
I guess I'd just like to say, and I'd like to commend Commissioner Downs to the meeting at the Par 30 for asking the right questions and making sure someone was there to ask those questions. So I just wanted to commend you on your involvement in that meeting. It was nice to see you, like I said, just asking the right questions. I'd also like to congratulate the 10U Chaska Hawks Gold Fast Pitch Softball team on a championship in Bloomington this weekend, so way to go, girls.
Yay.
Commissioner Epps?
I read an article about water quality in Carver County. Anybody else see that?
Yeah.
And how Carver County had some of the worst water quality for some smaller, I don't know if you even call them lakes, but smaller lakes. But one of the A-rated water bodies was the clay hole, which I'm not sure what their methodology or minimum size is for measuring water quality on a water lake area. But the clay hole made the list, so that was interesting. I don't think of the clay hole as a ultra pure, basking in Aquafina-like water, but apparently it's rather good.
Goldfish, is that the bar? Did everybody see that story about the goldfish?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of panfish. It doesn't, but anyway, I can't speak to the goldfish. That's it.
My only thing would be, even though he's not here, to recognize Michael for his contributions to the park board. With his resignation being tendered today, I do hope he's able to swing by before he makes the move to Waconia, but he's been a very involved and engaged member of the park board, so I'd like to recognize his contributions and thank him for his service. I hope he's watching. I'm sure he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm certain that he is.
All right, Commissioner Whitrock.
Tuesday is the volunteer recognition event at the lodge where people who volunteer are recognized, and then it's an open event for anyone who wants to attend. And it's always a very nice gathering, so I just wanted to pass that on. Tomorrow, do you say? Tuesday, no, a week from Tuesday. That's right, is it, Mary? Yeah, it's a week from Tuesday.
All right, terrific. Commissioner Winding?
I would say that I really like all the follow-up that the board does, whether it's the Firemen's Park 2, the dog park, the continued adding it to the agenda every month and following up, I think is great, and taking into account the community's comments. I think that's great, bringing them to the board, making sure that we're aware of it and discussing those. And personally, I am very excited and looking forward to the KPMG PGA golf tournament next week. So hope everyone gets out there and enjoys that.
Thank you. And for myself, I'd just like to add to what Commissioner Mihailov offered in thanking Michael Flaherty-Wilcox for his service here on this commission. And he was not bashful in stepping right in and contributing, and he thought hard about things, and he asked questions, and you know, his contributions are going to be missed, and we certainly wish him our loss is no doubt going to be Waconia's gain. And we look forward to seeing him hopefully at next month's meeting, and so we can all have a send him off in good spirits. But yeah, he will definitely be missed by this board. So, all right, that's it for me. Next meeting is going to be on Monday, July 8th, and I expect it to be at the same time, and it'll be right here. And so with that, looks like we're kind of approaching.
Actually, too, a reminder, on next week, Monday, the 17th, we have an all-commission meeting with the city council, and that's going to be over at the fire station.
Is that going to be videoed by chance? I'm not going to be able to make that.
Yes, they do intend on videoing that as well, so
That'd be great.
we can make that available at a future time.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, Commissioner Udermann, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Branch, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.